And we are back for our cleanup show. And hope everybody's having a great holiday season. This is one of those rare years where Christmas and Hanukkah perfectly overlap.
Isn't it just wonderful when
I
that
love it when
happens?
that happens. I love it when that happens. My daughter said to us today, because at school they had their holiday concert and there's some Hanukkah songs and there are some Christmas songs
Yeah.
and they rewrote one of them has a second verse that was written specifically to talk about driving on PCH and there's no snow on the beach and all this kind of stuff. It's very funny. And then there's another one. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Happy Hanukkah. We wish you a Merry Kwanzaa and a Happy New Year. It got all they did all four of them in there, right? They like wedged it all in. And so she was saying, she was asking us about Hanukkah today, and do they give gifts in Hanukkah? Oh yes, absolutely. You get gifts in Hanukkah. And there was a long pause, and then she says, "Can we celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas this year?"
She's getting savvy.
Yeah, she's getting savvy because my wife tells her, "Well, no, they give gifts like each of the days of Hanukkah that you get a gift," and she's thinking, "That's a better deal. That's a better deal because that way I extend the gift giving." And she's smart. She's a smart one. So, Tim, we got shortlisted.
Oh yes, which is actually this really is a fantastic thing, an exceptional thing. We're talking about just short film.
The short film Refugee, for those who listen to the podcast but aren't on the Facebook group. So the short film that on which I am an executive producer, and I am one of several executive producers. Don't want to take any giant credit for it, but my wife produced it. She was one of three producers. She did the hard, heavy producing during production. And written and directed and co-produced by our friend Brant and Brant Anderson, and we shot it in June and got this thing finished in August and September, and got it filed got it a 1 week theatrical run, and qualified for the Academy Awards just before the deadline on October 1st, and 191 shorts from around the world, a lot of them with festival exposure and a lot of awards were submitted, and 10 were chosen for the short list. We are one of the 10.
Yeah, to get down to that's already an achievement.
We're
right
so
there.
happy.
5, of course, will be actually nominated.
So ballots open January 2nd, and then from the 2nd to the 7th is the nomination voting. And then on the 13th, it's the most accelerated Oscar schedule ever. And then on the 13th,
it's way earlier this year.
Way early. So on the 13th, we will find out if we are one of the 5.
Yeah.
And I'm happy already.
And really, this moment right here is a great moment. We always, we anticipate.
Yeah.
And we write that speech for the stage and all of that. And these are all wonderful moments. But this is one that you ought to revel in a little bit. This by itself is an achievement and was hard work.
It was so much hard work, and because we bit off a lot for a short film. It's a story of a Syrian doctor, a woman, and her daughter who become refugees.
Yeah.
And it's, we shot it basically here in Los Angeles, but with certain locations for the Middle East. And we had a lot of locations and a lot of people and a lot of logistics,
Some significant actors.
There's some name actors in it. Pulling in a lot of favors, but a lot of love going all around. Everybody kind of being on the same page. There was nobody who did this for the money. Nobody who did this, everyone who did this, they did it because they read the script, they met Brant, they talked to him, and they just fell in love with the material, and we pulled it off. And it was a long road, but we're there, and this is just super gratifying. So I want to thank all the listeners to the podcast as well, because you guys keep us honest, and doing this every week, talking about movies, rambling about movies, putting our souls out into the ether, and then seeing you guys come back at us with the emails and comments on Facebook, and it's gratifying. You keep us honest, you keep us inspired, and you own a piece of this short list as well. So really want to put that out there, and thank everybody who has been so long and faithful to the DigiGods podcast. I want you to take a little bit of credit for our shortlisted short film.
Outstanding. Do revel in this moment. You know,
Revel in
when
it
you
with
make it
us.
to the 5, that'll be a new moment to revel in.
I love that you said when.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is,
That's what
you know, there's so much there's politics and there's luck and we'll see. You know,
but sometimes it's just good filmmaking. We were talking about it, you know.
It's a strong field of 10 films.
Yeah.
It's a strong field of 10 films. You know, a lot of them foreign. There's a Romanian director in there who won the European Film Award. I haven't seen his film yet, but he's top tier. Got an American director who's been there before. He's been nominated before and has won a lot of awards for his commercials. So, you know, it's a tough group. It's a tough group, but it's nice to know there's a lot of quality short filmmaking going on out there. It is
outstanding.
All right, we're gonna
this you know what the theatrical film that we have to speak about for just a minute. Got to talk about Cats for just a second.
Dear.
Oh dear, indeed.
Oh dear.
I just don't understand. It's just this freakish spectacle. You know, when the trailer popped a few months ago, everybody was all ready.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, that was so highly disturbing.
Mark and I
possible way.
Mark and I did a slam for DigiGods.com. I've been calling it even before I saw it, Showgirls with Fur, which I stand by. That is exactly what it is. But Mark said something in the CineGods review. It's the funniest damn thing in the world, where he praised Ian McKellen's performance as the old theater cat, because when he sang about the good old days, it made Mark think about the good old days before he walked into theater to see this horrible movie. I thought that was so funny.
Oh my goodness, Jennifer Hudson with that snot, Judi Dench looking like
Bert Lahr. Judi Dench looks like Bert Lahr, the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz.
This digital fur wrapped around all these people. It's just like, you know, it's all sort of like pheromoned up and kind of like horny, and it's just like, this is all extremely disturbing in every possible way. I'm sure we'll be talking about it on the show.
And, you know, Idris Elba, when he shows up as McCavity, the evil cat who you know does magic and makes other cats disappear or something. I still don't understand how that happens, but he was cool when he had the hat and the coat, and when he took it off and it was just that digital fur skin suit.
No,
Idris, dude.
No,
you have a good body, but nobody looks good.
No,
with that just
digital fur.
That was really problematic. That looked like some kind of avant-garde theater thing. It's just not good.
Yeah, look, I know it's one of the longest running musicals. 1981, I think it started on the West End. But you know what? I don't care. Don't care at all. This is terrible.
It's such a product of the 80s too, isn't it?
Yeah. And not for nothing. You know, we saw it in the 90s, maybe the middle 90s, something like that.
Yeah.
It was terrible then. It's just always been bad, and every now and again these really terrible plays sort of work their way into the the zeitgeist and establish themselves. And
you know, the thing about it that I find really mystifying is that there are a lot of plays, a lot of Broadway productions,
musicals,
a lot of Broadway musicals that that were considered for film adaptations, and at a certain point, more sane people said, there's really no story here. It's just a collection of songs and performances, and that's one thing when it's in a live dynamic, like a theater review. Right? That's one thing. And like vaudeville, that's all vaudeville. There are no stories in vaudeville, but people went because it was live. That's one thing. But when it becomes a movie, you need to flesh out a story. Like Into the Woods is a much more fleshed out movie than it was on stage. A lot of Sondheim is like that, like Company and Sunday in the Park with George. You know, these are things that have never really been done properly as movies. I think Company's never been a film.
No.
And you can't. Because unless you sit down and you totally rewrite it from page one.
Right?
And they should have done that here. There's a way to make Cats perhaps an interesting animated film or a CG animated film. But you need to write a script.
Well, you know, even T.S. Eliot said that he didn't think that those poems.
That's right. Charles said this on the radio.
Well, yeah, you know,
that Disney wanted to make a movie, and T.S. Eliot said, "I don't think there's a story."
No, they're just poems, dude, and they stand alone, but you string them together anyway. It's just and then just it's all very just bad and disturbing. I just had to poke at that a little bit before we got started over here. So where shall we be starting today, sir?
Well, I'm gonna dive in with the with anime. Lots of anime this week, including two really superb releases. One of them, which I don't know that this is. Did Funan make the short list for? I haven't paid attention to any of the other short lists. I was just on Cloud Nine. Did Funan make the short list for animated? Do you know?
I'm not sure whether it did or not.
Well,
We should take a look.
G Kids Funan by Dennis Do is an amazing animated film. If it didn't make the short list, it should have, and I am remiss for not checking that. This is an animated film that takes place in Cambodia, right around the time of the fall of Saigon in neighboring Vietnam, and it's about a woman whose life is completely torn apart because the other thing that happened when Saigon fell, and obviously all that happened at the end of the Vietnam War, is that the Khmer Rouge took control in Cambodia. And this is an animated film, believe it or not, about about a woman impacted by the rise and the terrorism of the Khmer Rouge regime. And this is like an animated Killing Fields. It is so profound. It is so beautiful. It is so powerful. And it's so well animated. I think this is really an extraordinary film, and I'm surprised that this wasn't promoted to us by G Kids, because I think this could have won our animation award. Anyway, Funan is what it's called, Funan, and G Kids has released it through Shout Factory. Has an interview with the director, Dennis Do. Plus storyboards, trailers, art gallery, not a whole lot, but it is really, really a superb film, and I just urge everybody to see it. It's really wonderful. It's Funan. And then going back a little bit, Satoshi Kon, one of the great legends in animation in Japan, one of the great anime godfathers, made a beautiful film some years ago, which is also now out from Shout Factory, and that is Millennium Actress. This has been restored and remastered from a 4K transfer. It's so beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Millennium Actress is just a wonderful, wonderful movie. It's also one of the few anime films of the last 15 years or whatever and this is from, gosh, when was this? Was this 2000 and I think it can't be 2001.
Early
It was 2001. Wow. It's 20 years
Almost
ago.
20 years ago, yeah.
Gee whiz. Can't believe that. Anyway, one of the last 20 years. It doesn't overly feel anime, and that's not saying anything bad about anime, but it kind of takes a step out of the conventions of anime to be a little bit more realistic in some respects, and that's quite a risk. And Khan does it just beautifully. And this is effectively the story of an actress, and kind of told in a documentary fashion, and it is just absolutely beautiful. It's poetic, it's unusual, it's very different, and it's a wonderful film. And there are interviews with voice talent and producers on this. Nothing with Satoshi Kon himself, obviously, but really a lovely movie. Just a lovely movie. Millennium Actress. Two really great anime releases this week. And then we've also got third season complete collection of Haecceitas, 2 exclamation points. This is from the Sente collection, 10 episodes on 2 discs here. This is continuing the volleyball drama of Haecceitas. Nothing terribly new right there. And then we also have My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu. This is seasons 1 and 2 in an English dubbed collection. I just can't really recommend anybody listening to this English dubbed, but it's and remember, the Japanese is on here. It's just that they also have the English dub. If you already have these with the just the Japanese, then just stick with it. There's no reason to actually ever listen to an English dub for any quality anime. And My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu, it is what it is. It's that cute little services club drama with these schoolgirls, and they have their unusual adventures. A few other things that are familiar and just kind of reissues or ongoing narratives. Hitamari Sketch got a new collection of that out. This is the Picture Perfect collection. Big-eyed little schoolgirls in their uniforms and some very, very remedial jokes. I can't highly recommend that one particularly. That's not really my. I'm too old for that stuff. The complete collection of 7 Senses of the Reunion. This is also from Sente. This is also very female-centric, and this is actually kind of interesting. This was not on my radar. I thought this was okay. This is based around a game that I guess is real and popular in Japan, the MMORPG Union. And it's once you sort of acclimate to the idea of these kids playing this game, and that this sort of creates a Jumanji-like adventure inside the game. If you can sort of get into that, then it's actually quite a lot of fun. There's a Tron-like leap of faith that you have to take, but it's okay. You can get there. We also have the Ultimate Collection of K-On! That's K-O-N, Ultimate Collection. More schoolgirl shenanigans, 41 episodes on 6 discs. They rock and roll. They do all kinds of fun things. They're in school. They rock and roll anime girls. What do you want? That's all it is. It's wish fulfillment. Golden Time, 24 episodes on 3 discs, also from Sentai. This also has a new English dub that I urge you to ignore and forget about. This is, middling, more sort of young person, teen and young adult drama, and doesn't really, it's, I guess you sort of have to be very specifically into that subgenre to appreciate it. Let's see what else we got here. We got Gakuen Basara Samurai High School. That's kind of fun. We have a lot of other things. We have swimming and volleyball and basketball and all kinds of sports activities and a lot of these things. I like the idea of a samurai high school. I really do. I find it very entertaining. I
went to that school.
I wish there were one. 12 episodes on 2 discs. Got Natsu no Arashi from the Made in Japan collection. This is a just kind of a teen summer adventure thing about a guy who meets a girl when he's staying with his grandfather's house during the vacation, and there's a sort of a mystical fantasy element to it that evolves. But and a ghost story, but it's cool. It's cool. It's a lot of fun actually. So Natsu no Arashi, that's worth checking out. And then the last 2 here, I'm going to finish the other ones later, and I'll turn it over to you to do some documentary stuff. Got Setokai Yakuindomo. Boy, I can't believe I actually mastered the pronunciation of that. Setokai Yakuindomo, and that's spelled Seitokai. Second word, Yakuindomo. And this is really, really unique. You know what it's about?
Yeah.
Schoolgirls in a private academy.
Again,
man. It's unbelievable. Anyway.
Like I'm complaining.
Yeah, it's an all-girl academy, and it goes co-ed. And then so now there's a guy who winds up being one of only 28 boys in a 500 girls school. This is like every Japanese man's teenage fantasy. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's the premise here. It's it is what it is. I mean, there's a lot of suggestive stuff. There's a lot of fetishistic stuff, but otherwise, it's surprisingly quite funny. I did find it very, very funny. This is season 1 and season 2 on 5 discs, complete collection. I'm going to say that title one more time: Setokai Yakuindomo. I'm so happy I mastered that. And then the last one here I'm going to mention is also from Sentai, Bloom Into You, the complete collection, 2 discs, 13 episodes of a surprisingly good series that is sort of young love, and it's all very wispy and sentimental, and really, yes, it's high school politics again and all that kind of stuff, but boy, it really seems a lot more sincere and less exploitative than most of these things are. So, I thought this was quite lovely, nicely done, and pushed some interesting boundaries. Here. So I like it. Bloom Into You, complete collection. What do we got on the dock end?
I'll start with a few of these PBSers, which are some really lovely documentaries. A few of them we were talking about not terribly long ago when we were evaluating nominations for the Los Angeles Film Critics Awards. One of them included For Sama, which is an extremely powerful documentary, basically conceived as a love letter from a young Syrian filmmaker to her daughter. Chronicling her life.
A lot of similarities between our short and this, by the way. It was very striking when we saw this.
I remember. I think you had seen it already, but when I saw this, I sent you a note that said you must see this movie. It's a very powerful film. This young woman, Walid Al-Khatib, is basically starts filming at the beginning of the Syrian Revolution. She and her filmmaking friends are basically documenting exactly what's happening. This is a very interesting film in that we get to watch what's happening when they are in the sort of delighted moment of joy when they think that this revolution is going to happen and that the Syrian government is going to fall, and then we drone on for the next 5 years as these young people, these rebels, find that this isn't going to happen nearly as quickly as they thought. And we watch them as they go through their lives. She gets married, has this baby, Sama, and basically creates this document as a record of what their lives were like. We meet so many people in this documentary, at the beginning of this documentary, early in the first 5 years, who do not survive all the way through this film. It's absolutely devastating. In some ways, it's like watching a narrative film, except that it's
beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Deeply moving. Again, a love letter from this Syrian mother to her daughter for Sama. A powerful film. I don't think it made. I don't think it got nominated. But I think it was nominated out of the country, but it didn't make the short list.
Yeah.
For the Academy Awards, which is a bit of a shame. Odyssey, the Chamber Music Society in Greece. This is a very interesting film. The Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center goes to Greece, where the sort of classical foundations of everything classical in the context of modern society, including music, was founded. And at a number of locations all over Greece, they play everything from Bach and Beethoven to Mendelssohn and Debussy, Ravel, creating this beautiful series of concerts. While at the same time taking us on a sort of historic journey through many of these places in Greece, the sort of first ancient theater at Larissa, the Taxicon at Palladion. It's just these beautiful, beautiful concert halls. Some of them ancient, some of them brand spanking new, including the Stavros Nikiros Foundation and Cultural Center in Athens. And all of this music is absolutely exquisite. These are some of the best musicians on the planet, and they make this sort of connection from the classical Greek society back to this classical music. It is quite beautiful, indeed. N. Scott Mamady. N. Scott Mamady would be one of the founders of the Native American Renaissance and Native American poetry and literature and music and everything else for that matter. He's a absolutely fascinating man. He's 85 years old now. This documentary, N. Scott Mamady, Words from a Bear, takes us through the journey of his life, much of his work. He's a Pulitzer Prize. He won the first sort of major Pulitzer Prize for a Native American writer back in 1969. And this is an absolutely extraordinary documentary. We get readings from N. Scott himself, as well as him in dialogue with Robert Redford and James Earl Jones and several other folks who are familiar with this work and very big. It's just from the Native American Society. This is just about one of the most important historical figures you could run across. Most folks have never heard of him. He wrote a novel called one of his first novels, The House Made for Don, which got that Pulitzer Prize in 1969. Beautiful book that should be read by everyone always, to my mind. PBS documentary, A Life from Above. This is just an absolutely fascinating series of 4 films, actually, all taken from satellites, filming various different areas that the satellites are traveling above, documenting exactly what is happening to our planet. The first one is called Moving Planet, and it really shows us, a lot of it's done with time-lapse photography, how our planet is constantly reshaping itself. Air currents, waves in the ocean, what the winds do. It's just an absolutely colorful planet. This one is just an absolutely classical when it floats over the Brazilian and the rainforest, particularly during that period. It's a period last summer when it was kind of all on fire.
Yeah.
And that was horrifying, but it created these images that are absolutely breathtaking. Patterned planet, just a view of the Earth's surface from space. And you see these absolutely intriguing patterns created by everything from the Grand Canyon to canyons, for that matter, underneath the sea that this sort of satellite photography can actually see through. And then the last one is called Changing Planet. And this one is the most devastating documentary at all. As we look at the ice sheets around Greenland and watch them shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink, and then not come back to the size that they were before when the next winter rolls around, and then shrink and shrink and shrink again. If you don't believe in climate change, watching this film, Life from Above, and the 4 films within this film will teach you something about the reality of our changing planet, including climate change there for a while. A wild metropolis here in Los Angeles. This makes total and complete sense to us, but there are other places around the world where this makes sense too. Either we are encroaching on the lands of wild animals, or wild animals are encroaching on land that we want. You can look at it any way you want.
Yeah.
But if you're in Florida, and places in Miami, in Dade County,
urban wilderness interface.
A crocodile is going to walk down your street, or what are the gators or crocs down there? I always forget.
I remember some years ago, shopping center not too far from where my daughter goes to school, a deer ran into the Banana Republic women,
which is an appropriate place.
And they got it, and it wound up getting trapped in a dressing room, and it had a heart attack and died.
Oh well, yeah,
it's horrible.
Actually, that makes sense completely. And of course, where you live and where I live, wildcats are becoming very common. Cougars, wildcats, depending on where you live, they call them. They're the same animal. And people's yards. One killed a dog not so terribly long ago. This documentary here, Wild Metropolis, is all about that. It's all about how we or they are encroaching upon one another, and what we're going to have to do about that if we actually care about these animals. Flint's deadly water. We're all, of course, familiar with the water lid in the water situation in Flint, Michigan, of the last 5 or 6 years. There's another story behind that story that fewer people are aware of. Folks who saw this frontline documentary, Flint's Deadly Water, will know that during that crisis, and continuing to this day, because that crisis is not over yet in Flint, a deadly case of Legionnaire's disease broke out that continues to this moment, that has taken several lives of young people and children and very, very old people in Flint. Folks, Legionnaire's disease. Look Legionnaire's disease up.
Yeah.
And you will know why that is perfectly insane. For the disease that we all but eradicated almost 100 years ago in the water in Flint, Michigan, right this very second. The only thing crazier than that is the fact that measles is back.
I know.
Dude, they got rid of measles when you and I were children. Before we were children. You know, lack of herd immunity. Anyway, this is an absolutely, and not, again, yes, the lid in the water, lots of folks are talking about that. The Legionnaire's disease thing. I'm telling you, folks, we really need to start paying attention because things are going on. Making us feel a little bit better. Animal babies. This is one of those just sweet little documentaries. Yeah. That's literally what it says. The first year on Earth, it goes through a number of beautiful, cute little animals.
Cute little babies.
And we follow them for the first 2 or 3 months of their lives because that's about how long various different animals stay. Baby elephants, baby otters.
Well, they're not cute after that.
No, after that, they're vicious, horrible animals that want to kill you. And then this movie series wouldn't make any more sense. You want to grab a couple over there while I get myself organized?
I'll go through the rest of the anime. The Funimation library has given us a whole bunch of great new stuff. We have collections 1 and 2 of Haecceitas, which is the 10th anniversary World Party collection. It's seasons 1 through 6, broken up into 2 different sets, 1 through 4, plus the movie in one set, and 5 and 6 in the other one. Haecceitas, of course, is based on the original web series or web comic series Haecceitas Axis Powers. It's all basically World War II lived out through the experiences concurrently of characters who are named after the Allied and Axis powers. You know, you've got England and France and Italy, and China's like this immortal 5,000-year-old. Anyway, so it's really kind of weird. It takes some getting used to. It's a very unusual, but it's also a very, very popular franchise in anime. 10th anniversary collections here. Released only on DVD. It's the only stuff, and I'm not quite sure why. Excuse me. But Funimation is releasing these in these 2 sets only on DVD. Hopefully the Blu-rays will follow at some point. And then we also have Ace Attorney Season 2 Part 2 is finally out. It's, Ace Attorney is kind of like the anime version of Perry Mason. Lots of cases, lots of attorneying. It crosses over pretty well. There's some stuff that, you're not quite sure what legal system is going on here. It's not the American legal system as we know it, but it works. It's still courtroom stuff, and the intrigue is fun. The animation is sharp. Conception, the complete series, is pretty decent fantasy. However, the only way to describe this, I'm going to read straight from the press materials because there's no other way for me to beat around the bush and to describe this adequately. Here is the press synopsis of Conception, the complete series. After being whisked away to the magical world of Granvania, this way I have plausible deniability. They can't blame me for describing it any other way. After being whisked away to the magical world of Granvania, Itsuki must perform love rituals with 12 beautiful maidens. And with the star children they create, he will defeat the malicious creatures corrupting their world. I'm sorry. Basically, what this is saying is be as promiscuous as you want because the fate of the earth may depend on it. That's what we're talking about. Conception. It's okay. I wouldn't call it great anime or anything, but it's okay. And then we also have Meiji Tokyo Renka, the complete series, which is fine. It's it's a time travel thing. You go back to the Meiji era of Japan, which will mean nothing to anybody who doesn't know Japanese history. And there's kind of it's sort of I don't want to. It's like somewhere in time with Japanese feudal society. Let's put it that way. It's a little bit. That's kind of what it is. Sort of. Then let's see what else we got. We got Chain Chronicle, the light of, and I have no idea how to even pronounce this word, even after watching part of it. Chain Chronicle, the light of Haecceitas, Haecceitas, Haecceitas.
Gesundheit.
I know. Complete series. This is pretty much straight up Lord of the Rings. It is Joseph Campbell through and through and through. It is fairies and all kinds of mythical creatures in a world that can only be saved from attack by a messianic figure. Call him Frodo or Bilbo or Luke Skywalker, whoever you want. It's that exact scenario right all the way through. No deviation whatsoever. It's like they read Joseph Campbell and said, there it is. That's all we want. Star Blazers Part 2 continues my favorite Star Blazers reinvention, the reinvention of Star Blazers, the reboot of it. This is now fighting the White Comet Empire and pulling together and doing all the Star battles are great. We've also got another One Piece. This is episode of Skypiea, the TV special, which is pretty much more of the same. It doesn't really reinvent it in any degree. If you're not familiar with One Piece, it'll mean nothing to you. Radiant, Season 1, Part 1. This is a very popular anime series based on a French comic that was finally turned into an anime series, which is, I think, very interesting. And this is all about, protector sorcerers and a young wizard and in a magical quest and more Joseph Campbell stuff. But because it's based on something French, it's actually quite interesting. There's a cultural crossover that I think is pretty cool. Season 2, Steelbook of Yu Yu Hakusho, which is fine if it's the ongoing episodes of the Dark Tournament and who's going to win when they step into the ring. If you haven't seen season 1, it'll mean nothing. If you have, it's basically more of the same. Restaurant to Another World, the complete series. It's totally bizarre. It's about a restaurant that serves very unusual foods and has a very unusual clientele and enters into some very unusual adventures as a result. It's a very, very peculiar show. We also have, let's see, what else do we have here? My Roommate is a Cat, the complete series. Much better than the movie Cats. This is all about an author who finds a stray cat and it inspires him to write a novel, and then the cat goes haywire and he starts to regret it. It's kind of funny. Fruits Basket, Season 1, Part 1. This is a really big, beautiful box set. It comes with resin replicas of characters from the series and a set of 3 art cards. And it's really quite it's a pretty fantastic gift set. I'm not sure the show really warrants it, to be honest, but apparently it is popular. and it's a fantasy, but it defies description. It's a little bit unusual. Golden Kamuy, Kamuy, season 2 is again more of the same. It's a little bit, it's a little intense actually. The the war that goes on here. And then the last two, Nanbaka, the complete series, which should be familiar to everybody. This is a prison tale, all about inmates and the drama they're in. It's pretty solid. It's got a real following. And then lastly, Harukana Receive Receive, the complete series, which is more high school and volleyball and summer drama and youth stuff, the kind of stuff we're always talking about from Sente. So there we go. That's the Funimation rundown. What else do we got on docs?
Well, I have a few more docs. Let me knock off the last couple of PBSers, if I may. Beginning with, let me see. Raúl Juliá, this wonderful Raúl Juliá, who died in 1994. Raúl Juliá was, of course, Puerto Rican, came onto the scene in the early 1960s as part of that sort of
that's right.
Miguel Pinheiro and all those guys who were coming into the scene at the time. Before the sort of notion of diversity and all of these things happened, Raúl Juliá managed to carve out a place for himself as an actor. Now, Raúl Juliá would play all kinds of characters, white guys and Jewish guys and Arabs. And as a matter of fact, he mostly never played Puerto Rican guys.
That's true.
It's almost the only thing he didn't play all that much. But he built this amazing sort of career for himself, particularly on Broadway before we came to know him, probably in that major role, Kiss of the Spider-Woman.
That's right, opposite William Hurt in his Oscar-winning role.
And absolutely astounding.
He deserves as much credit for for William Hurt's Oscar.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
Oh, yeah. He gave William something to play off. It was just absolutely amazing. And this is a wonderful documentary that sort of covers the diversity of his life from where he came from, literally from Puerto Rico, that period in the 1960s right up through the 80s. And of course, his sort of iconic performances in those Addams Family movies, which he is, of course, known for. But, it'd be a shame if Raúl Juliá was left to be known only for his performances in those Addams Family movies. He's quite a wonderful actor. Well before that, this is a great American Masters presentation about Raúl Juliá. So America's Test Kitchen, home for the holidays. So America's Test Kitchen, a show that I watch occasionally, every now and again. These wonderful cooks, scientists, nutritionists, going through and sort of explaining the way things are done.
I used to hate it because I could never duplicate the food.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting closer, so I like it a little more.
It really is sort of a neat thing. This one is their holiday show, so all those sort of wonderful holiday dishes that you're going to have just made or be getting ready to make. Illustrated for you on this episode, this series of episodes from America's Test Kitchen, 60 minutes worth of stuff. Really, good stuff. And if you're a chef, you're going to want to check that out for sure. Magical Land of Oz. And the land that they're talking about is Australia, which in a certain sort of way is almost Oz-like. If you consider the wealth of fauna, animals and fauna all over Australia that exists no place else in society. It really is a somewhat magical land. This film works its way down from the snow peaks to the depths of the deserts, looking for all kinds of wild things. There's an animal called the numbat. I'd never even heard of this animal. It's in this movie, the numbat, gigantic cuttlefish. It's just really extremely diverse.
Do you want to cuddle with a cuttlefish?
No, not really. No. It's kind of ugly, big, and mean. But this is just really an extraordinary Australia. I mean, we live in America.
Yeah.
But if you've never been to Australia, I was on an aircraft carrier, so we went to Australia many years ago. Like that, it really is a fascinating place where you will find things that you will not find anyplace else. In 1987, at St. Louis's Fox Theater, I went to a concert. Not knowing at all that concert was being made into this iconic film, Chuck Berry's Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll. directed by Taylor
Amazing.
Hackford.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing film.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was a celebration of Chuck Berry's 60th birthday
Yeah.
back in 1987. My dad got me in there because
And
my
he
dad
was still
you know,
doing
running-
what he did, that bit
that
with the
thing with the
knees
knee and the phone with the guitar and the whole thing. Chuck was at it. St. Louis is like I said, St. Louis's Fox Theater was a fantastic performance. Everybody was there. Eric Clapton, Robert Cray, Julian Lennon, Linda Ronstadt. Interesting, Linda Ronstadt was there because our next film is Linda Ronstadt, The Sound of My Voice. This is a
Beautiful
wonderful,
film.
beautiful, beautiful film. All the more poignant because Linda, of course, is suffering from Parkinson's now.
And can't really sing, but she sings in this, and she doesn't
sings
like
in
to
it.
sing anymore,
Yeah,
and she
yeah.
sings in it. They got her to do it.
And her voice is this extraordinary. We forget that Linda Ronstadt, Latina.
Yeah.
And she sang in every possible genre. She won 10 Grammy Awards. She topped the charts in every one of those genres: pop music, country music. She's just this extraordinary figure.
So diverse, and she, because of her upbringing, because of her background, she combines all kinds of cultural influences, and she could do anything.
Yeah.
She could do anything. She had just those great, and she was so. People forget how pioneering she was for women in the music industry.
Oh yeah, and she was extraordinary guitar player, but her voice was perfectly exquisite.
Yeah.
This is poignant, very sweet, a little bit sad, but it's a fantastic history of an extraordinary woman.
Yeah.
In the music industry. This Morgan Spurlock movie, Supersize Me 2. You know what? Look, Morgan. I think it was 2000, whatever it was, 15, 20 years ago. That other movie, Supersize Me, the first one.
And his other movies haven't really matched it, so he felt the need to kind of go back to the well.
Dip
again.
into the well. This one's about the chicken business. What he does is he, in the years since that first movie, all kinds of claims have been made about how we've fixed the fat food and everything's organic, everything's healthy, nothing has gluten in it anymore. So he's more or less investigating whether or not a lot of that stuff is true. Here he sets up his own sort of chicken franchise.
Yeah, he's trying to start a fast food franchise, and he runs afoul of a lot of people.
Yeah.
But foul.
Very good,
made
sir.
a joke. But it is he wants it to be an honest fast food franchise. He's going to tell you exactly what you're eating, and
so he goes to the farm where they farm the poultry and all this kind of stuff. And I suppose he figures out that it's not really possible.
What he discovers about the poultry industry is very, very upsetting.
It
I will
really
say
is.
That. Apart from all the sort of self-aggrandizing shtick that he does, you find it basically turns out that the poultry business is like modern-day sharecropping.
Yeah.
And these poor chicken farmers are screwed.
Yeah, they're
screwed
in
over
these extremely severe contracts that lead them to grand amounts of debt.
Yep.
And while gigantic companies like Tyson and many of the ones that you've heard of make billions upon billions of dollars, there's also the issue of what happens to these actual chickens. And we feel the way that we feel about these things. I'm not for abusing any kind of an animal, even if I'm going to eat it later. So there's that thing that's going on, and then there's also the issue of what they're putting in these chickens.
True.
Steroids and this and that, and what does it mean when something says it's organic? That doesn't actually mean anything, folks. No. So anyway, interesting in that way, but it's a bit of a dip back to the old well. I found this film here, this A.V. Belkin film, Mike Wallace is here, absolutely fascinating. So Mike Wallace, over 50 years as a journalist, and an interesting sort of character in and of himself. Mike didn't start out as a legit journalist. He was a pitch man and a host of morning shows, and
he came into it sideways.
He came into it sideways. He would sit there smoking cigarettes and talking to light artists, and before you know it, he ends up interviewing, engaging with all of the most important figures of the 20th century, anyway. Political figures, you name it. Mike Wallace sat across from them. He became known for being an aggressive interviewer who would ask the hard questions. In this documentary, we see a youngish Donald Trump sitting across from Mike Wallace. Hard to reconcile the Donald Trump in this film.
Yeah,
we're talking late 70s, early 80s.
Late 70s,
probably.
sure.
With the Donald Trump that we're dealing with today, this sort of reasonable, not bad-looking, guy taking punches from Mike Wallace and seemingly just letting it all sort of roll off. That sort of change. You know what I've always found most interesting about Mike Wallace? Is that for years I did not know that Chris Wallace was his son.
Oh, you didn't?
For years.
Oh, really?
I didn't realize that until maybe the middle 90s.
I remember seeing a televised conversation between the two of them, and it was fascinating because it was like it wasn't hostile,
Oh,
but it was competitive.
oh yeah. They plainly don't like. For one thing, Mike Wallace did not raise Chris Wallace. One of the things we learned in this
Yeah.
documentary is that Mike Wallace was a fairly awful father.
Yeah.
And that he had a tragedy. Of course, he lost a young son, or he lost a son, an adult son,
Yeah.
in a horrible accident. In Greece, and nevertheless, he did not raise his son. Chris Wallace, of course, is the news director at Fox News on the news side, not the editorial side, whom we know now. He's probably the one reasonable human being now that Shepard is gone. From Fox.
Shepard's been,
yeah. So, but on the news side at Fox. So fascinating there. They do a thing in this doc that I like a lot. So obviously Chris was interviewing a number of extremely important people over the course of all of those years. Back then, television was more or less square, that 1:3:3 aspect ratio.
Yeah.
So what they can do in this film is that they can take the person that Mike is interviewing and the angle on Mike. It would have been a 2-camera shoot, obviously. And they put them side by side in our 16:9 frame that we have now. So now we're watching Mike while we're watching the person that Mike is interviewing. And it's so fascinating to watch Mike's face when he asks one of those questions that he's known for asking.
Yeah.
To watch his face as we're watching their face as they try to figure out or weasel away from Andrew. And very often there's this ever so slightly smug smirk on Mike's face when he knows he's put the shiv in.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because you've never seen that side of it
That's
before.
true.
You know, and it's an interesting thing. Really, really great piece for films for fans of journalism. Special feature includes some deleted scenes.
Got a couple of other really great docs here. One was released a few years ago. It's called Water and Sugar, Carlo Di Palma, The Colors of Life. Colors spelled the UK way with O-U-R-S. Water and Sugar. This is a documentary purely about cinematographer Carlo Di Palma. Best known here probably for working with Woody Allen, but internationally did a lot of great films with Antonioni and Bertolucci, Wim Wenders. Really an amazing cinematographer. And this is just a tribute to his work and the richness of how he was as a collaborator and working with film, especially. It's just absolutely beautiful. The Italian tradition in cinematography is second to almost none. And what a wonderful, wonderful tribute this is. Obviously, all the relevant people are interviewed here. Woody Allen, Bertolucci before he passed away, Ken Loach, Wim Wenders, Volker Schlondorf. It's really a beautiful film. Water and Sugar. Just this is if you love movies about filmmaking and film people and just the business in general, you'll love it. This is one I have a very special place in my heart for. It's called That Pärt Feeling, the universe of Arvo Pärt. When I say Pärt, it is spelled like part, P-A-R-T, with 2 dots over the A. Arvo Pärt, it's called That Pärt Feeling. Arvo Pärt is probably the most famous living composer right now in the world. He is Estonian. Never really left Estonia. He lives there still, but journeys to Germany and elsewhere to participate in the staging or the performances of his music in concerts. His music is minimalist. It is pre-Philip Glass in that sense, but it is also very spiritual. He's a devout Orthodox Christian, and there's a religious quality to his music. You have surely heard it. It shows up in movies all the time, especially in Terrence Malick movies. There's tons of Arvo Pärt music in Terrence Malick's movies. And you see him here. He's interviewed. His collaborators and acolytes are interviewed. You see him working with students to helping people stage his music, finding the right way to perform it. And he's such a sweet man.
Yeah.
He's, I think, late 70s, early 80s now. And he's such a sweet man. He's so gentle. He's so appreciative and humble and not at all in any way transformed by his fame or his success. It's all about the music. It's a beautiful documentary. I can't say enough about it. If you haven't heard his music, I really highly recommend it. That Pärt Feeling, the universe of Arvo Pärt. All right. Let's drop into some new movies. One, I'm going to start off with the 4Ks. Let me roll through the 4Ks because we have a lot of big movies here that are going to be in Oscar contention. At least one that'll be in significant Oscar contention, and that is Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is out in a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray digital copy combo set, pumping into your Movies Anywhere account, and watch it on iTunes or anything else like I have several times. The 4K is spectacular. This film was shot in film by Robert Richardson. Amazing job. You know what? This movie gets better every time I watch it.
Yeah.
It's 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and I've seen it 4 times now, and it gets better every single time. It might wind up being my favorite film of the year in another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think this is going to win Best Picture, hands down.
You think so?
I do. I don't think there's any question.
Interesting.
Because the Scorsese's already won for he's already won. The Irishman will not win because it's too long and it's Netflix and there's a bias against Netflix, and he already won one for the Departed.
Plus, it's crushingly boring, but go on.
Okay, Tarantino has only won 2 awards for screenplay. He's never won Best Director. He's never won Best Picture. He's due. This is it. He's threatening to only make one more film.
Yeah.
If that's true, they only have 2 more chances to give it to him. Why not give it to him for a movie?
Yeah.
It's about filmmaking.
It's funny. I'm thinking of what would be its sort of principal competition for that Best Picture.
Parasite and The Irishman.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 films. Parasite is foreign. It's going to lose a lot of votes just
because
it's
going to pick it. Yeah.
They're all 3 long.
Yeah.
I mean, Parasite is actually the longest. This is the shortest of them.
Yeah.
So, Parasite is like 2
It's
hours.
interesting. I think you might be right. You might be onto something there.
So this will win just because Quentin has played it right. He's been, apart from that little Bruce Lee dust up with Shannon Lee.
Yeah.
Okay. So what? That's a small part of the film, and I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to do it. And the extras are fantastic. The extras are wonderful,
including what is it, 20 minutes or something of additional
stuff. Yeah, I mean there are some great featurettes, all about with Robert Richardson doing the cinematography and the crane work and the the art direction and the set design is fantastic. And it's great seeing him sit there with all of his actors, including Margot Robbie, and talk about when you get that perfect take. Then just do one more. Let's just do one more, everybody, and they all smile, and at the same time, they all chime in, we love making movies. And you realize Quentin he infects everybody with love for the process.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Also out is It Chapter 2. Not as good as It Chapter 1, but only because those kids aren't in it. Those kids were amazing.
Yeah, this movie is about those kids, but as grown-ups.
As grown-ups. This is the second part of it, if you know the story. But I got to be honest, Andy Muschietti, hell of a director. This guy really knows how to put a movie together. The commentary is terrific. One of the best commentaries I've heard in a long time. Stephen King this captures Stephen King beautifully. Fantastic. A lot of featurettes. Additional documentaries. If you already have the previous 4K, get it. This film is a beautiful film to look at. It is fantastic. Hustlers 4K. I'm not as enamored of this film as a lot of other people are. We gave Jennifer Lopez our Supporting Actress Award. I guess.
She's great in that movie.
She is good, but is the movie good?
Yeah, the movie's okay. It's based on that true story of these strippers and what went down with some of the guys that they were dealing with at the club, and eventually it all sort of went south on them. Is the movie fantastic? No, the movie's okay. Jennifer though, I thought brought it. For one thing, that chick's 50.
I know.
You know what? Gonna give you an award just for that.
Well, it does look good. There's a lot of low light photography here in the club.
Who's in that movie? Is it Aquafina?
No, it's Constance Wu.
Constance Wu.
She was also in Crazy Rich Asians. And I mean the performances are good. I'm not so keen on the movie, but it does look good on 4K, and not much by way of features, but there is a commentary by Lorraine Scafaria, who directed it, which is pretty good. Few other 4K releases here, most of them negligible. Rambo: Last Blood is just straight up terrible. It really is. He's just got to stop it now. No more Rambo, no more Rocky. Just do something else, man. Direct somebody else. You're a good director. Just step behind the camera and do what Clint does.
Yeah.
Just own your age and say, I'm going to direct other people in the movie. You don't need to be the movie star anymore, dude.
Yeah.
But Stallone went and made Rambo: Last Blood, and it is way beyond Last Blood. It's basically trying to do the First Blood thing all over again, but it's like a border thing, and with all kinds of Hispanic stereotypes, and he's a man making a stand, and it doesn't work. Can't recommend that one. Also got Angel Has Fallen, the latest Gerard Butler crisis where he and Morgan Freeman.
He must have made a hell of a deal, man. They must just be pouring money on him to make those dumbass movies.
He and Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
They must just be swimming in money. Nick Nolte, Jada Smith, and Danny Houston also show up to suck up the budget of this just stupid movie. It's just like, how many assassination attempts and international geopolitical crises can this one guy save the United States from?
Or London or wherever.
London or whatever. It's just absolutely outrageous. Poor Morgan Freeman, man. His presidency is the most beleaguered U.S. presidency in history. Everywhere he goes is a crisis. So stupid.
I preferred it when he played God all the time.
Oh, so silly.
That was more
look, if you love it, 4K, fine, why not? Abominable in 4K looks great. This is another one of those creepy DreamWorks animated movies that takes basically the facial features of Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon and turns it into an abominable snowman, and it's freaky weird. Look at that thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't look right. It's also not a very good movie.
Looks just like Toothless.
It's not a very good movie, but it tries hard, and it's got a couple of shorts that are pretty cute and some stuff on animating the movie and whatnot. But otherwise, unless your kids are clamoring for it, I wouldn't recommend that one. But I would recommend this, which I think has not gotten enough praise this year. It got kind of dumped on by some people. But Brad Pitt in Ad Astra by James Gray.
I liked it.
Full disclosure, James Gray, I've known for 30-some years. When he was a film student at USC, and a lot of my friends were at USC. He was there with Matt Reeves and Brian Burke and a lot of other people that I know. That's how I know him. And I love James's filmmaking. I think this might be his best film. It is effectively taking elements of 2001 and elements of Apocalypse Now and merging them into a father-son narrative that is one of the most interesting science fiction films I've ever seen. And I think it's really well done, incredibly profound, very polished. James knows how to put a movie together, and it's one of the best things.
Opening sequence of that movie is absolutely thrilling.
It's riveting.
You're not going to give anything away, but
it's
just,
it is. It's incredible. No, this is a superb film, and it is, of all the films we talked about on 4K, this is the one you're going to get the most out of on 4K, even more than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is just absolutely superb. By the way, speaking of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that special edition that they sent us.
Oh yeah, that box.
It didn't get it. We didn't give it any awards as a result, but I was damn near close to it. It's got a 45 record in it.
Yeah.
It's got like a comic book, a Mad comic. It's incredible.
Oh yeah,
it's totally worth it. But Ad Astra also totally worth it. James Gray does a ton of stuff on here. He's really, really working it. Does a commentary that is absolutely superb. Tons of featurettes. And deleted scenes with a commentary as well that is really insightful. You get a great sense of his process. But man, what a terrific movie! Ad Astra, wonderful, wonderful film. Great effects, and practical effects too. It's not all CG.
Yeah,
great practical effects. Good stuff.
A little bit of new stuff.
Yeah.
This a little horror film. Ready or Not, it really should have gotten a little bit more traction, a little bit more love, because it's a wicked nasty, a lot of fun little horror movie, starring this young actress named Samara Weaving, who's like a even younger Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
She has Margot's face. She's fantastic in this movie. She's a young woman marrying to this very, very rich family, and this rich family has all kinds of wacky things they do, including this one particular ritual that they go through where they play a game that's sort of like hide or seek in their big gigantic mansion over the course of this one
evening. It was originally called Hide and Seek.
It was originally called Hide and Seek. It was.
Movie, yeah.
And we soon come to find out that this game involves a whole lot of people getting killed and pretty much all of them trying to kill her. And it's all about what she has to do to survive this evening, past midnight. This was fun to me, and better amongst the sort of devilishly wicked kill count movies that we've seen. Anyway, and like I said, I just fantastically love her. This Blu-ray contains all kinds of special features, including the making of and a gag reel and audio commentary, and an interview with Samara. Really, really, really neat. Ready or Not, wicked little horror movie. Downton Abbey onto the big screen. I thought that this was a perfectly enjoyable big screen rendition of the lovely British series Downton Abbey. Basically, what you have are
I
the
love
family.
this movie.
It was really good.
Yeah.
You have the family, and of course, all the folks. Yeah, I was always an upstairs, downstairs kind of guy myself, but nevertheless, and the king and queen are coming to visit. And this has to do with the house staff and the queen's staff, and a bit of intrigue going on with some folks who might be interested in doing harm to someone. But all the characters are there and all their iconic roles up to the present moment of the period. It's really smart. I like the way it includes the history of the period there. I like the politics that play out in this film a little bit too. The film gets a little bit political. I think that's interesting. But it's basically Downton Abbey, the Downton Abbey that you know. Played out on the big screen. All kinds of bonus features here, including deleted scenes, the old sort of upstairs, downstairs cast conversation business, a walk through the 20s, the brilliance of Julian Fellowes, commentary with him, and a commentary from the director of this film, Michael Engler. Good stuff.
Fantastic.
Downton Abbey. Can't go wrong with Downton Abbey.
It's just so good.
You know, at least Renee's performance in this movie, Judy,
Yeah.
I wish got a little bit more love.
Yeah, you like it more than I do.
Renee's performance is what I like about this movie. It's a fragile performance. I think she gets something right about Julie Garden. Now she's doing her own singing,
and that's a problem.
And she doesn't sound like Julie Garden. Julie Garden had that Julie Garden voice, but she does get that sort of fragility thing going. That sort of feeling that you had. This is of course about the last year in Judy Garden's life.
It was around the last year or two of her life, but it was when after she broke up with Luft, and she was sort of a single mom, and then she went and did those shows in England to try to reboot her career. And
did actually. You know,
it
was a very successful run.
She's singing drunk and drinking.
She's fallen apart during the whole period.
Yeah,
taken up with that piano player boy.
Yeah, it's what a wreck her life was at this stage, and there are some flashbacks to when she was a girl and getting screwed over by Sam Goldwyn, and,
during the shooting of the Wizard of Oz. Which was that was some really intense stuff there. You know, him sort of lording over the young Julie Garland and what went on there. But again, I think they thought we'd be talking about this. I was a big fan of her performance. In the film, the film's okay too. It's not an award-winning sort of film, but it's a perfectly serviceable sort of drama. Dora and the Lost City of Gold. I went to see this movie for the radio show.
Live action Dora.
Live action Dora. And look, it was kind of funny, pretty goofy. The young woman who plays Dora in the movie, I kind of thoroughly enjoyed her. Because she really encapsulated the sort of her name is Madeline Miranda, the sort of transference of that cartoon with the big wide eyes and all of this stuff right onto that live screen, and she is doing Dora as deeply as Dora can be done. Now she's been doing Dora for years. This young actress, she plays Dora's voice in all those films, so she really has a sense for that. But this is a silly movie that really young kids might find fun. And it was certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. But again, this is pointed at little bitty kids, for sure. Mary was this fairly disturbing film from Gary Oldman and Emily Mortimer. Basically, it's about this family that buy this boat. Actually, it's Gary Oldman's character, the father, who buys this boat. They got a couple of kids because he wants to start a charting service. Emily Mortimer, his wife, is livid about this, and he spent all the money, has no idea how to sail really, and it's probably going to destroy the family. Turns out, boat's haunted. They're on a haunted boat. That's always a mess when that happens. Anyway, the movie sort of wanders around and meanders quite a bit, gets pretty vicious toward the end there. Next thing you know, almost everybody's dead. And Emily Mortimer was right. You shouldn't have bought that damn boat, Gary Oldman. It's from the writer and director of that movie, The Shallows, which is actually a pretty good movie.
Shallows is good.
But this one, not nearly as well. Not nearly as good. Special features include a making of... little documentary thing there. You got some?
Yeah, I got some. Reindeer's Journey. Dove approved. This is Donald Sutherland narrates. It's kind of one of those nature documentaries like Ring of Bright Water and Born Free. And, we had a lot of those back in the Bear is another one, the Jean-Jacques Annaud film from more recently. Anyway, this is basically about a little baby reindeer who's got to go join mom on an odyssey through the snow in Finland, and meanwhile Donald Sutherland gives you the narration. It's cute, it's fine, it's sweet, it's innocuous. It's 86 minutes long, and that's longer than it should be. But for this kind of film, it doesn't take any risks and doesn't need to. Blinded by the Light was a little bit underrated movie. I thought it didn't. I don't think it got as much love as it should have. Gurinder Chadha, whom I've met and with whom I have some common friends, who did Bend It Like Beckham, basically kind of tells a little bit of, well, it's her it's a combination of things, really. It's her background coupled, sort of superimposed on the story of the screenwriter, Sarfraz Manzoor, who it's based on his book and his own experience as a young Pakistani man in the UK who falls in love with Bruce Springsteen, and who finds all kinds of Bruce Springsteen's music kind of gives him. He discovers life through it, and it's just, he develops this obsession with Springsteen, and it's all based on that and that of course creates all kinds of cultural friction, and where does he belong? He's a Pakistani guy. He's subject to all kinds of racist judgment. He's got a white friend who's trying to be a musician as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff in here. It's not as good as Yesterday, which came out around the same time, which is a fantasy, because Yesterday deals with the Beatles. Springsteen doesn't have the same weight as the Beatles.
Yeah.
But for what it is, Blinded by the Light is quite a fun memoir, and it's done really, really. It's very, very sweet, and Gurinder did a good job with it. It's also a romance, also with a young British girl, as you would expect.
Yeah.
Overcomer is a faith-based film from the Kendrick brothers. It's pretty much by the numbers faith-based filmmaking. Doesn't really do anything that's all that different. Alex Kendrick is a coach who, how do I even do this without kind of giving anything away? It's a coach's story, basically, is what it is, and it's all about once you hit rock bottom, how do you pull out of it again? And it's the same trajectory that all these films really usually do. It's got some good performances in it, a lot of special features, commentary from the Kendrick brothers, but otherwise, it's not unique in the genre. Where'd You Go, Bernadette, with Cate Blanchett, really should have gotten a lot more attention as well. This is actually a pretty novel adaptation of a book that I would have expected to be completely unadaptable. Richard Linklater directed it. He just makes more movies than anybody can keep up with. It's a bit of a quirky story about a woman who played by Cate Blanchett, who had a career as an architect and married an architect, and then suspended her career. And she was the daughter of a famous architect, and or her husband isn't an architect, but she married a tech guy and suspended her architecture career so that they could have a family. But now she's left all of this work undone, and there's sort of these obsessions that gnaw at her, and she goes off on a wander, and the family's got to try to catch up with her and figure out what has she lost her mind? Is she going crazy? Have we lost mom? What are we going to do? And Billy Crudup plays her husband, and what a sweet film it winds up being. It goes to just a really beautiful place. I won't tell you where it goes to figuratively or literally, but it goes to a really beautiful place. Cate Blanchett just runs away from her family, and eventually everything turns out beautifully. American Dreamer, basically an indie version of Taxi Driver, starring Jim Gaffigan. He's unstable. He's an Uber driver, and he's got a kid and an ex-wife, and he's trying to juggle all of these things, and he's a psychological mess. And it goes dark, and it goes darker, and it goes really dark, and never comes back. And I didn't particularly like the movie. I thought it was exploitative on a lot of levels that it didn't need to be. It was kind of obvious. At the same time, Jim Gaffigan kills it.
Mm.
So it's a little bit like Uncut Gems, where even if the movie's unpleasant, you can't help but sort of admire the performance in the middle of it.
Yeah, Jim has a way of playing those extreme, funny guy,
Yeah.
Jim, comedian.
Yeah.
But he can play these sort of edgy, scary guys sometimes.
And then we've got Lucky Day is, it is what it is. It's from Roger Avery, who of course won an Oscar for writing one of the stories in Pulp Fiction that Quentin Tarantino optioned from him. They were old friends. They worked at the video store together. So Avery has kind of kept his career going in the shadow of Quentin for a few years. And he's done some good movies, things like Killing Zoe, which have a certain sheen of their own. But I don't find much to like in Lucky Day. I think it's just kind of it's just sort of more of the same that we've gotten from him. He hasn't evolved like Quentin has evolved. It's you got just a lot of really unusual characters. It's a little bit like 3 Days in the Valley.
Oh yeah,
with more violence.
Hertzfeld film.
Yeah, it's a little, or 2 Days in the Valley.
2 Days in the Valley.
But yeah, I mean, Crispin Glover just plays weird here, and Nina Dobrev is good, but it doesn't quite work. I mean, Crispin Glover's a hitman. How many times have we seen that? It's like what he did in Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, with that face.
Yeah. So anyway, not really into it. I think everybody deserves a better movie there. The Goldfinch, great novel, horrible movie. Everybody hated this. It went nowhere. It's out on Blu-ray for those who care about it. But Ansel Elgort and Nicole Kidman and Jeffrey Wright and everybody who's in this, Finn Wolfhard, they have all done much better work. If you like the novel, do not watch the movie because it'll just wreck your memory of it.
I knock off a few of these, a few more films here. Official Secrets. This was an interesting film. It's not a very. It's an interesting film in the way that it documents this little bit of history. Keira Knightley, Matt Smith, Michael Good, Ralph Fiennes, telling the story of this UK whistleblower, British intelligence officer. Her name is Catherine Gunn. This all happened back in around 2001, 2003, right before the start of that particular war. And she discovered a transmission that illustrated that there was a secret spying program going on and a plan between the UK and the United States governments to blackmail several smaller countries in the UN into voting for that Iraq war. In other words, into going to war based on trumped-up circumstances, and she blows the whistle. A story is published in The Observer. Of course, what the intelligence agency tries to do is figure out who the whistleblower is. Interesting in the context of some of the things that we're living through now. Who's the whistleblower? In this particular interest, Gunn came forward as the whistleblower, and then was subjected to, a trial. It was a catch-22 that she found herself in. She's going to be prosecuted for being a whistleblower, but she wasn't allowed to talk about what it was that she blew the whistle on. It was catch-22. What happens is fairly interesting. It's a nice little piece of history. In terms of filmmaking, look, it's not exactly All the President's Men or anything like that. It attempts to create that sort of tension. But that sort of tension really can't be created with this story some 17, 18 years on. Nevertheless, it's, like I said, a nice little bit of history. Particularly enjoyed Keira Knightley in the film. Official Secrets, based on the true story. Here's a fun little horror movie for you. I particularly like Omar Epps in this movie, from the director of Bloody Valentine. It's called Trick. Interesting film. Halloween night, 1915. This killer, called Trick, kills a whole bunch of classmates at this costume party. He gets arrested, he escapes from police, and he's killed by this police officer. Shot, dead, or so we think, until the next Halloween. And the same kind of killings start happening again, and they happen Halloween after Halloween. So we have this cop played by Mike Epps who's going to figure out what the hell is going on. Is this guy still alive? Didn't I kill him? Is there something supernatural here? This is what I like about this movie. Omar Epps. I keep saying Mike Epps. I'm sorry about that, Mike. Or maybe I'm sorry about that, Omar. I don't know. Omar Epps. Omar Epps is so mature in this film. He looks mature. He has this sort of beard with a little bit of gray in it. You know, he's a dark-skinned brother with a bald head, and he has these sort of weary eyes. And it really all plays so wonderfully in this movie. It's this cop who thought that he put this guy down years ago, but he just keeps coming back and he keeps coming back. Making of the film featurette on the back of that there. Feast of the Seven Fishes. I remember watching this film for Film Week a few weeks ago, and I got to tell you, I fell into this deadgum charming ass film. Set in 1983. It happens sometimes, you know. Set during the holidays, 1983. I'm living all in my head in 1983 in the holidays. This wonderful little Italian family celebrating this old traditional Italian holiday tradition called the Feast of the Seven Fishes, and we're following around this guy through 1983, and I'm looking at all these 1975 and 78 Camaros. Because if you were Italian in New York in 1983, you were probably driving a 1975 Camaro. You were if you were
totally
cool
true.
anyway.
My aunt was. Because I told her to.
Yeah, because that's the car you want to be driving. With all of these folks, it's a really, really funny, sweet film. I don't know if it'll become a holiday classic, but if you were to see it around the holidays, it would definitely tap into something for you. Audio commentary with the director Robert Tennell here behind the scenes of the movie. Just a sweet little movie. Joey Pants. Yeah. Joey Pants in this movie. Can't go wrong with Joey Pants. I'm pretty sure Joey Pants is about 150 years old.
It feels like it, right?
Joey Pants, look at his IMDb. It goes back to the freaking 60s.
Yeah, it does. It's
you know, crazy. And he wasn't a kid in those movies in the 60s. Joey Pantaleone is who I'm talking about.
So
Joey
good.
Pants. This movie, Freaks, did not quite work. It's a horror movie, superhero movie kind of thing. Emil Hirsch, Bruce Dern in the movie, Amanda Crew in the movie, a little girl named Grace Park in this movie. We have this little girl, and she's being hidden by her father, kept from going outside. She's 6, 7 years old, has not been outside her whole entire life because she's been told that there are these things outside, these abominables that will hurt you if you go outside. But she keeps getting drawn outside by all of these dreams and little nightmares that she's having, and she really, really wants to go outside, and she eventually does. And what she finds out that there are all kinds of creatures with supernatural powers and whatnot. This is, you know what the problem of this movie was? It played coy with what's going on. You watch this movie for 45 minutes, and you want to go like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And then you find out what's going on. And the thing that's going on, there was no reason to play coy with. That's the mistake of this movie. Yeah. If they had just got right to it and told you what's going on, and then just go ahead and make the movie you want to make, these two boys, this is an audition movie. Yeah, these guys want to make a Marvel film or a DC film or something like that. And they probably will. They know how to do all the tricks. There's eventually this whole thing going on that has to do with supernatural powers, the little girl, all this kind of stuff going on. So they can do all these sort of supernatural power things. They're pretty good at that stuff. But you know, just get to it, guys. Just write the story, write the script, and get to it. Quit jerking us around. Bonus features, director's commentary, behind the scenes, all that kind of stuff. Emil Hirsch, don't see a lot from him lately.
But he is in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yep, he is.
He's great.
Yep, who's he playing again? He's playing Sebring.
Yeah, he plays Jay Sebring.
The hairdresser.
And he does a great job of it, too. Yeah. He's really good.
I could not remember for the life of me. Charles Manson's name, they were on the show. Yeah. And something came up, and killer. And I could only say, you know, the guy in 1969 who killed all the people up in the house. Yeah. And I'm like, well, how could I not remember Charles Manson?
Because when you are on radio, your brain goes a mile a minute. You're always, 20 seconds, 20 steps ahead of yourself. Yeah. So gonna knock off some Criterions. Man, a bunch of Criterion stuff came out since we did the show last. 1 month goes by and Criterion just goes nuts. Number one, we want to talk about their volume 1000 Godzilla set. They chose the epic one for their 1000th release, and it is 15 Godzilla movies on one set. It's shaped like a coffee table book. Tim, this is a coffee table book.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
It's like a slightly narrow coffee table book size, but all the discs are inside, plus a booklet and all this other stuff. But 15 movies, starting with the original Godzilla in 1954.
A very good movie, let me point out.
Godzilla Raids Again, King Kong versus Godzilla, Mothra versus Godzilla, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, Invasion of the Astra Monster, Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, Son of Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters, which is one of my all-time favorites, All Monsters Attack, Godzilla vs. Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Gigan, Godzilla vs. Megalon, Godzilla vs. Mecha Godzilla, and lastly, the 1975 Ishiro Honda directed Terror of Mecha Godzilla, which is ridiculous. It truly is. I mean, this goes from the 50s right into the 70s. Tons of great stuff on here. They've got international English language dub tracks for all the ones that are relevant. Audio commentaries for a few of these featuring David Kalat, who we've talked about before. I know David. He's a good guy, does great commentaries. Beautiful transfers, all of them Blu-rays. And there's even an interview with Alex Cox, who for some reason is a Godzilla fan, and I never knew that. And it's weird. It's weird, but somehow I watch Repo Man, and now I understand why Alex Cox was. I see it. I see it. I see it in his work. And of course, the book itself is quite a thing. It's got essays and illustrations, and it's just this is an amazing collection. It's just an amazing thing to have. Other Criterion releases, no less impressive. The Oscar-nominated Cold War by Pavel Pawlikowski is wonderful. If you haven't seen this is basically a romance, a tragic Dr. Zhivago type romance set against the backdrop of the Cold War.
Yeah. And so beautiful in black and white.
So beautiful. Oppression under communism, this doomed couple, and do we keep our love? I mean, he's a theater guy, and does he flee to the West and leave her behind, or do they go together? I mean, it's all that stuff. It plays it out so beautifully. It's such a perfect film. Tons of fantastic extras on here, including the press conference from the 2018 Film Festival, which is absolutely excellent. If you've ever been to those press conferences, they can go south or they can go great. And this one goes great. Also on the foreign end, Betty Blue from 1996, the director-approved special edition, Betty Blue by Jean-Jacques Benex. This is the film that introduced the world to Beatrice Dalle, whose fated romance with Jean-Hugues Anglade in this is, right up there with Last Tango in Paris and all of the great erotic doomed romance movies. This is really one of the best. I have a wonderful story I'm going to tell very quickly. So Jean-Jacques Benex, who doesn't make enough movies but is one of the great directors in the world, used to be represented by Fred Milstein when Fred Milstein was an agent. Fred Milstein eventually became a completion bond guarantor that my wife worked for. Fred was the guy who bonded Lost in La Mancha, the previous Terry Gilliam La Mancha film that went south, and he's depicted in the documentary. One day, knowing that I'm a big Jean-Jacques Benex fan, Fred said to my wife, "Oh, Jean-Jacques is in town with his wife. They're coming over for dinner. Would you guys like to join us?" Of course, I freaked out. I ran around the house just screaming like a schoolgirl, and we spent a wonderful dinner at Fred's house and had dinner with Jean-Jacques Benex and his wife, and it was amazing. I actually got to have a private dinner with Jean-Jacques Benex, and could not be a nicer guy. Also, could not be more cynical about Hollywood. And you would expect him to be, but really, just the greatest guy in the world. So smart, so sharp, wonderful. Always willing to talk about his movies. And Betty Blue is Benex at his level best. It is still a wonderful film all these years later. From 1986, 3 hours long, and in the director-approved cut, you don't feel a minute of the length. It is fantastic. Tons of extras, tons of interviews. There's an hour-long documentary about the film that is just superb. Set aside 4 hours for the movie and the documentary. It's really, really superb. I just can't recommend it enough. There's also, French television stuff. It's terrific. On the domestic end, The Story of Temple Drake with Miriam Hopkins from 1933. Fascinating movie. Pre-code, just barely pre-code, and also just on the cusp of when Prohibition is ending. Based on a novel by William Faulkner called Sanctuary, this is kind of like an early Roughie. It's a pre-code film about a woman who winds up at the horrible mercy of bootleggers in their bootleggers' lair, and these sexual overtones and the graphic stuff of this is really, really it's harrowing even now. You can imagine what it was like then. This is a terrific, fascinating film, and it also features a conversation between John Bailey, cinematographer and current president of the Academy, or previous president of the Academy, and our friend Matt Severson from the Margaret Herrick Library. Matt Severson, who took our LAFCA, helped us get our LAFCA archive set up over there. Matt Severson, terrific guy, really smart, and the conversation that he has with John Bailey is all about the archival materials that they use to get this film back into shape. I mean, it's a wonderful conversation. And there's even a new piece with Imogen Sarah Smith, film critic, about Miriam Hopkins and her performance, and it's great. It's all great. So I'm just thrilled that Matt Severson and John Bailey are on this. It's terrific. It is an unbelievable film. The story of Temple Drake from 1933, absolutely fantastic. Also, Irving Rapper's terrific Now Voyager with Betty Davis and Paul Henreid and Claude Rains. This is an absolute legend of a film from 1942. Betty Davis has rarely been better. It has an episode from the Dick Cavett Show in 1971 with Betty Davis. It has an interview with Paul Henreid from 1980. And it has a scene commentary on the film's score by Jeff Smith. It's absolutely terrific. Look, it just, I mean, the Betty Davis as the spinster who through the work of a psychiatrist transforms. It's sort of like an early version of Pygmalion. It's an amazing movie, wonderful performance. And if that's not enough, an older Betty Davis in 1950 in All About Eve will get you going. Man, this is a great movie still. All About Eve, one of the great all-time, it won Best Picture, one of the all-time great Oscar performers. Most nominations of all time of any movie, tied now with La La Land. And, hold on, it's going to be a bumpy night. Come on, it's the best movie, the best look at behind-the-scenes stuff ever. And one of my favorite things about All About Eve, and for those who don't know, Betty Davis plays the aging star, and Anne Bancroft is the young up and comer, the conniving up and comer who's going to find her way, into Betty Davis's shoes. When they did Hotel, who wrote Hotel?
I forget.
The series Hotel for television. It was a TV movie with Betty Davis playing the matron of the hotel. When it went to series, Anne Bancroft stepped into the Betty Davis role,
which is so ironic.
I don't know how many people understood the irony of that, but I laughed hard. And my favorite line in this movie, I'm just going to say, is George Sanders when he says to a melodramatic Anne Bancroft, "You're too short for that gesture." My favorite line ever. Three more on the Criterion end as we start to wrap this up. We're going to go to some TV here in a moment. Sidney Lumet's The Fugitive Kind, adapted from the Tennessee Williams play with Marlon Brando, Anna Magnani, and Joanne Woodward. This is one of the great films of the 1960s, right at the beginning of the decade. Superb black and white, just really an amazing movie. Everything that you would expect from a Sidney Lumet movie is on display here. It's Sidney Lumet, Tennessee Williams, Marlon Brando. You can't go bloody wrong. Loaded with extras. Tunes of Glory, a great British movie by Ronald Neame with Alec Guinness and John Mills. Also just an epic movie from the same year, 1960. Just the other side of the pond. And just a wonderful look at with Alec Guinness kind of he's taking a lot of the character that he'd already depicted in Bridge on the River Kwai and kind of investing it in here as this commanding officer of a Scottish battalion in peacetime, and it's really just a powerful, moving drama. It's absolutely beautiful.
I was the projectionist, and Ronald Neame in the early
That's
90s.
right.
Yeah, and I was the projectionist in that class, and that was one of the movies with it. Yeah,
what a guy!
Yeah, fantastic person. His mother was a wonderful French actress, Glory. What was his mother? The wonderful French Glory. Anyway, extraordinary.
And then the last Criterion is Old Joy by Kelly Reichardt, who remains one of our great female directors, not just female director, but one of our great directors of independent films, and really one of the first to kind of break the gender barrier. This is from 2006. Old Joy is a very, very sweet film. Beautiful performances by Daniel London and Will Oldham, who've really gone on to do not a whole lot of anything, but they made this for next to nothing, and it really is just a beautiful kind of road trip and character study, and it's just fantastic filmmaking here from 2006. Beautiful movie by Kelly Reichardt with some great extras on here, including new interviews and a conversation with the two actors and where they are now.
I just wanted to do a couple of television ones over here,
Yeah.
particularly this interview with Dr. Martin Luther King by David Susskind. This
good.
is out of the David Susskind archives.
Yeah.
This is an extraordinary thing. So back in June 1963, David Susskind conducted this long and very specific and intimate interview with Dr. Martin Luther King, and they talked about everything, including the recent events in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
The recent events at the time in Birmingham, Alabama. It was a very consequential interview, this, and it almost didn't happen. WPIX out of New York had cleared the show to air, but its affiliate down in Alabama, WNEW-TV, did not want to air the show because they were afraid of the way it would play this sort of discussion of racial conflict in America. But WPIX sort of won the day, and the interview went on. And they discussed just about everything, including Dr. King's very specific disappointment with the Kennedy administration and how slowly the Kennedy administration was moving on some of the civil rights information.
Yeah.
This upset the internal machinations in the Kennedy administration greatly, and forced Robert Kennedy to deal with some of these things, and ultimately John Kennedy too. So this was a very consequential interview. This is restored by the Paley Institute. It's a beautiful, beautiful restoration. The conversation, you don't have things like this anymore. The equivalent of this does not exist today.
True. We don't have those interview shows.
And David Susskind has been one of those great sort of intellectual interviewers that we've sort of lost a little bit to history.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, he was one of the pioneers of it all.
He was. True.
As opposed to, say, Dick Cavett.
Yeah.
Who I have here in my hand. Dick Cavett, the radio pioneer. Dick Cavett is just an extraordinary. I watch the Dick Cavett show all the time. It comes on one of those sort of broadcast stations.
I did too.
And you look at the Dick Cavett show, and then you look across to who he's interviewing, and you just never know who will be there. So I'm watching the Dick Cavett show the other day, and the middle 70s show, the extraordinary Melba Moore, wonderful black R&B singer, and she's sitting next to Salvador Dali. And Melba Moore and Salvador Dali are like flirting, or at least Salvador is. Melba was probably just being kind, but Salvador was hot for Melba Moore, for sure. And yet they're all having these extremely sort of intellectual conversations that were the sort that happened on the Dick Cavett show. Dick, of course, had worked for Jack Parr.
Yeah.
And he also worked for Johnny Carson as Johnny Carson was getting going. But it was Jack who told him, make your interviews conversational.
Yeah.
Do not dumb them down, either for your interviewee or for the audience.
That's so smart.
Be as bright and smart as you are. You will be surprised that people will rise to your level. And some of the most extraordinary interviews that ever happened on the Dick Cavett show. So this is wonderful. Radio pioneers Bob Elliott, Ray Golding, Don Imus. I almost forgot about Don Imus. And, of course, because he's been around so damn long, Howard Stern from the early 80s, middle 80s, on this set of interviews. Again, some very insightful conversations, not always about the subjects that you would think that these folks would talk about. They drifted off into politics. They drifted off into literature. There were very, very bright people, and Dick Cavett always trusted them to be as bright as they are. Bonanza. Look, dude. Volume 1 and Volume 2 I have here. This series,
which seasons?
This is going to be the 20th, the 10th official season, and they're both the 10th
season, Volume 1 and 2.
Volume 2.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, Bonanza was on from 1959 until like
forever,
the middle 70s or something.
26 million people a week used to watch.
Used to watch the show. Of course, there were only 3 networks at the time, but 26 million people basically took up 1/3 of the entire viewing population at any given moment.
You're lucky to get 7 million people today.
Absolutely extraordinary. Special features on both of these, the 10th season, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I still love this series.
It's great.
Some people poke at it because of, the Hop Sing thing and all of that kind of stuff. But I think about it like this. Hop Sing was an integral part of this family.
Sure he was.
And generally speaking, Hop Sing was never treated poorly by this family at all. There were episodes where Hop Sing was treated poorly but that means that these filmmakers way back in the 60s and 50s.
They were a little bit enlightened about it.
Yeah, they were enlightened about this. Yeah. And they knew to tell stories about that, and Little Joe would go and shoot somebody.
And I will say this, though. He's got 3 sons from 3 different women who all died in childbirth or something. That's not a good track record.
Yeah,
Don't date that man.
Yeah, Lauren Green was knocking him off. We forget Pernell Roberts was on that show.
Pernell Roberts used to be a neighbor.
Really?
Yeah, he was a jerk.
I was going to say, Pernell doesn't have a good reputation.
He doesn't have a good rep. He was not
Trapper John eventually.
Yeah.
Probably the second longest running series was Gunsmoke.
Yeah.
1955 to maybe it was even longer.
It's the longest. Gunsmoke was the longer one. Yeah.
And again, this is the 16th and 17th season of Gunsmoke. Another series that I loved. Another series that was brighter and a little bit more forward thinking than you think. Miss Kitty.
Yeah.
Who ran the whole house.
Yeah.
She was running the whole house. Just the only way to say it. She was running the whole house. The cat house. She was doing it. But you know what? Miss Kitty was a self-actualized woman that didn't take no crap from nobody.
True.
So, interesting the way we think about these things now. If you look a little bit closer, and something a little bit more sophisticated is going on in these shows than we give credit for. Yeah, really, really it is.
Got a couple for, let's wrap out with these. George Clooney's Catch-22 for Hulu. I like the original film better with Alan Arkin. That just still is my fond memory. I love that. But Clooney does a really interesting job of finding a different take on it.
It's not as funny.
It's not as funny. It's probably more faithful to the novel, and it's long. This is 4.5 hours. He really gets into all the nuances of the book and really kind of finds things there that never made it into the other movie. It's not as funny. It's more ironic, a little bit more. It pushes the envelope. A lot of special features, mostly featurettes and deleted scenes, and outtakes as well, which are not that funny, just more interesting than anything. But he gets a good cast. He's in it himself. He's very good. Direction is solid. So can't fault him. This is a very interesting addition to Catch-22 lore. And I think it honors the book. And then lastly, Letterkenny, seasons 1 and 2 from Crave. This is a Canadian comedy that is absolutely hilarious. This reminds me a little bit of Father Ted and things like Green Acres, where you're kind of lovingly poking fun at rural people and their idiosyncrasies. And Letterkenny is out in the middle of nowhere. It's in the boonies, and it's just there are just really only dumb people there. they only 3 groups, right? Hicks, skids, and hockey players. And every Canadian stereotype that you can think of is integrated here and is poked around and prodded and celebrated. And this is Canadian. This is Canadian eccentricity at its very best. I think this is a really, really fun show. Seasons 1 and 2 from Crave of Letterkenny. And with that, we are done for the week. We are done for the year. So we wish you all a happy new year. And we will ramp this show up again once the holidays are over. Don't have an absolutely firm date yet, but it will probably be the second week in January. So have a great new year, and we will see you all then.